Listen and subscribe to our podcast from your mobile device, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, Stitcher. Marianne Williamson has distinguished herself in the Democratic primary as a voice for the role of spirituality in American politics. This week on The Argument, Ros Douthat sits down with Williamson to discuss her journey to faith, her writings on illness and disease, and how religious and spiritual language have inflected both the country's history and the current political climate. Then, Michelle Goldberg joins Ros to debate Williamson's candidacy, record and New Age messaging. Michelle argues that other 2020 candidates, including Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand and Elizabeth Warren, have more effectively anchored their campaigns to moral arguments. Ros thinks Williamson's brand of spirituality without religion has injected the presidential contest with aspects of psychology and faith that more traditional politicians often overlook. And finally, Michelle recommends a new novel that both echoes and distracts from the headlines. Image: Ros Douthat and Marianne Williamson recording The Argument at the New York Times building. Edit: Carla Kessler, The New York Times background reading. Ros on what Marianne Williamson brings to the 2020 Democratic field, Williamson's critique of modern medicine and reading fiction in an age of distraction. Michelle on Cory Booker and his use of civic gospel, and Elizabeth Warren and the 2020 Democratic primary as policy contest. Meet the hosts. Ros Douthat. I've been an op-ed columnist since 2009, and I write about politics, religion, pop culture, sociology and the places where they all intersect. I'm a Catholic and a conservative, in that order, which means that I'm against abortion and critical of the sexual revolution, but I tend to agree with liberals that the Republican Party is too friendly to the rich. I was against Donald Trump in 2016 for reasons specific to Donald Trump, but in general I think the populist movements in Europe and America have legitimate grievances and I often prefer the populists to reasonable elites. I've written books about Harvard, the GOP, American Christianity and Pope Francis. I'm working on one about decadence. Benedict XVI was my favorite pope. I review movies for National Review and have strong opinions about many prestige television shows. I have 3 small children, 2 girls and a boy, and I live in New Haven with my wife. Michelle Goldberg. I've been an op-ed columnist at the New York Times since 2017, writing mainly about politics, ideology and gender. These days people on the right and the left both use liberal as an epithet, but that's basically what I am, though the nightmare of Donald Trump's presidency has radicalized me and pushed me leftward. I've written 3 books, including one, in 2006, about the danger of right-wing populism in its religious fundamentalist guise. My other 2 were about the global battle over reproductive rights and, in a brief detour from politics, about an adventurous Russian émigré who helped bring yoga to the West. I loved to travel. A long time ago, after my husband and I eloped, we spent a year backpacking through Asia. Now we live in Brooklyn with our son and daughter. David Leonhardt. Image: I've worked at the Times since 1999 and have been an op-ed columnist since 2016. I caught the journalism bug a very long time ago, first as a little kid in the late 1970s who loved reading the Boston Globe sports section and later as a teenager working on my high school and college newspapers. I discovered that when my classmates and I put a complaint in print, for everyone to see, school administrators actually paid attention. I've since worked as a Metro reporter at The Washington Post and a writer at Businessweek magazine. At the Times, I started as a reporter in the business section and have also been a Times Magazine staff writer, the Washington bureau chief and the founding editor of The Upshot. My politics are left of center. But I'm also to the right of many Times readers. I think education reform has accomplished a lot. I think 2-parent families are good for society. I think progressives should be realistic about the cultural conservatism that dominates much of this country. Most of all, however, I worry deeply about today's Republican Party, which has become dangerously extreme. This country faces some huge challenges: inequality, climate change, the rise of China, and they'll be very hard to solve without having both parties committed to the basic functioning of American democracy. Related more from the Times on Marianne Williamson's 2020 campaign. Opinion, morals and values in the 2020 election. AUG 10. 2019 opinion. David Brooks. Marianne Williamson knows how to beat Trump. AUG 1. 2019 The curious mystical text behind Marianne Williamson's presidential bid. July 5. 201,918 questions with Marianne Williamson. June 19, 2019 How do I listen? Tune in on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tell us what you think at argument@nytimes.com. Follow Michelle Goldberg, at Michelle and Brooklyn, Roz Douthat, at DouthatNight, and David Leonhardt, at DylonHart, on Twitter. This week's show is produced by Kristen Schwab for Transmitter Media and edited by Michael Garofalo. Our executive producer is Greta Cohn. We had help from Tyson Evans, Phoebe Lettany and Prasad Philbrick. Our theme is composed by Alison Leighton Brown. Let's block ads. Why?